Live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts right now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope all of you are just waking up on a super fantastic Sunday, NFL around the corner. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show wherever, however you may be watching and listening. We are live all around the social media grid. iHeartRadio, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitter, and Instagram is where you can like, follow, subscribe, and hit the bell button to get you up to date on future bad shows and on the Fox T network. Boy, we got a stacked lineup here for all of you guys today. From the Purple Pocket Podcast, joining me talking some Vikings, and of course, my good friend Robert Lyle from the Philadelphia Sports Talk will be joining me. So, boy, I'm going to tell you right now, it does, like, for me personally, my heritage and my background. Now, I am full-bred American. Watching the World Cup has just been sensational. And after what going through in the quarterfinals to getting into the semifinals, it's been absolutely just nuts. It's been crazy. So we've got Argentina against Croatia, and then we have Morocco against France. I mean, it's been insane. And so for me and my background, I've told people who I've rooted for. Obviously, us Americans, Mexico as well from my family's background. And then, of course, my last name being Silva, I was also rooting for Portugal. And unfortunately, what a heartbreaking loss for Portugal and for Cristiano Ronaldo and for everybody on that lineup. That was a tough loss, tough pill to swallow. But in the end, the best of the best do come out in center stage, and especially in a World Cup atmosphere. This was, it was just crazy. The fact that Brazil gets knocked off and now Portugal gets knocked off. The only tough team left to be standing is France and Argentina. And so if Lionel Messi really does make it up into the World Cup, I think we got ourselves a fantastic one. But all that left to be said during the week as well. And by the way, so I wanted to talk about this. So last night we had the trophy ceremony, the Heisman Trophy, the most prestigious award in college football. And all four finalists were all quarterbacks. And every one of them all showcased their skills. They all showcased their talents and their production. But every single one of them, not as close to the level of Caleb Williams. I mean, this was a fantastic first year for Lincoln Riley. Brings over his young quarterback from Oklahoma and completely turns around a program that had been dealing with nothing but punishments. They have been a sub 500 program since Pete Carroll left. And this was just an amazing and fantastic year for the Trojans. It was so good to seeing a Trojan player since Reggie Bush in 2005 to win the Heisman Trophy last night. And here's the thing. There's a lot of resiliency too. Because the second Caleb Williams ended up winning the Heisman Trophy, he did say, quote unquote, I may be standing here and winning this award, but all of you sitting there on the chairs are going to the college football playoffs. You know that had a lot weighing on his mind the second Utah upset them in the Pac-12 championship. Caleb Williams is going to be a number one overall pick next year. He's just that great of a talent. And the fact that you're getting an offensive-minded genius in Lincoln Riley to turn this whole program around, I did not expect USC to have the most massive jump in college football, let alone the Pac-12. The second Lincoln Riley stepped in the building, it changed everything. The offense I knew was going to be explosive. The defense was going to need, at the very least, get a lot of work. I knew that right off the gate. But once you saw how this season starts and ends, this was probably the best thing you can put. And Caleb Williams, like most of all of these generational quarterbacks, because mind you, this year's draft, you're getting Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Will Levis, probably Max Duggan, and several other quarterbacks. And a lot of them all have different stories. TCU, like they're a tough team. They got a really good defense. They've produced a lot of really good corners and safeties and at least a bunch of different talents, both offensively and defensively, over the last few seasons. And we all know with Ohio State, because CJ Stroud may not look great in the first half, but as a second half quarterback, I think that would be the most valuable pickup, especially for anybody that would be drafting. I mean, I look at the Detroit Lions, I look at several other organizations. I think it would be a really, really impressive pick. And then Max Duggan, you know, and you're looking at Stetson Bennett. Everybody was all doubting exactly what Stetson Bennett really does bring to the table. And look, I'll be honest with you. Georgia is a really good football program. Kirby Smart really has put together a great roster, both offense and defense. Last year, they won the national title. And but for Stetson Bennett, he's a good kid, good quarterback. But um, if I had to resemble something of what I've seen from Georgia this year, do any of you guys remember when Alabama, when they were a great program, they were leading all of college football, and the two quarterbacks, the ones that were able to get them all the way up to the top, and they were really good college-wise. NFL didn't really make it as far, but two quarterbacks, Greg McElroy and AJ McCarron. That's what it reminds me of Stetson Bennett, because unlike Caleb Williams, who just has all the talent, who just has all this like the skill set, the creativity, Stetson Bennett is a guy that is willing to master a playbook, understand the offense, and go with the flow of how the program sets. And Georgia, all they're looking for is just somebody that's willing to produce the football. And Stetson Bennett's the guy. But last night, Caleb Williams, it was much deserved from the very beginning. The fact that he goes in from Oklahoma to USC with Lincoln Riley and he puts on a display like this, it's unheard of and it's unbelievable. And you're just witnessing an awful lot of really, really good talents that are coming out of college football. That's why I get so excited about it. And look, I know a lot of people are like, well, Hendon Hooker, he ended up getting snubbed from the whole thing. I get it. I do. It is unfortunate with the season ending injury. I would have told people, I said, I would have put it as an honorable mention because even Hendon Hooker in Tennessee had a great year and was willing to end up getting the Volunteers over the top. And then the second the injury happens, it all went downhill from there. But he's still a very impressive quarterback. I think he'll be a sneaky pick during the draft. But it all will be left to be said. But as far as I know, this was a great night for USC. It was a great night for Lincoln Riley. Third quarterback product since Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield that Caleb Williams wins the Heisman Trophy. It was well deserved. Congrats to Caleb Williams. And boy, I can't wait to see what the next draft will be next year. All right. So we've got our good friend here that we're going to be putting up here in a couple minutes. But I look at, and I've said this over and over again. I've said it since the first of the season. Is the NFC North was going to look completely different because Devontae Adams, he leaves Green Bay. Minnesota, they get an offensive-minded coach in Kevin O'Connell, and Chicago, they're clearly up in rebuild. And then Detroit, they knew with what they were going to get productive-wise with Amon-Ra St. Brown, DeAndre Swift, and several other players. This was going to be a complete shifter in the NFC North. And a lot of people are like, you're crazy to think Minnesota's going to run the table. Green Bay, how dare you end up shutting out Aaron Rodgers? And I said, look, Aaron Rodgers is not going to have his number one wide receiver. This is tough. You got young wide receivers, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, and you also have an old veteran in Randall Cobb. How am I supposed to really expect and guarantee that for Green Bay? It wasn't going to work right out of the gate. And Minnesota, they've built around their talents. Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne. And then just in the trade deadline, they ended up acquiring TJ Hawkinson. Like, they have a set offense. All of this to prove, can Kirk Cousins produce the football and get it all to the right people? Can he get Minnesota's offense over the top to where they could be in the playoffs a threat? And you're looking at the division now. Lots of people all thought Green Bay would have at least ran this division. But I was realistic. I said Minnesota will probably end up winning this division because offensively they have the talent. Defensively, there are still some adjustments that they have to make, but they got really good defensive players. Daniel Hunter, Zadarius Smith, Eric Kendricks. They have talents there up on defense, but I think they can add more. And then Detroit, they were going to be an interesting team. The second we got a few games into the season, their offense was just popping. Jared Goff, and this is why I said I took Detroit here at home, because Jared Goff as a home quarterback is completely different. And then you look at Chicago, and finally, they listened to what a lot of analysts were talking about. They're a rebuilding team. We all know that. And they needed to acquire draft capital. They needed to acquire a lot of the money spending that they will be on next year's free agency. But what did they end up getting in return? Well, they went and traded for Chase Claypool. So there's a weapon for Justin Fields to finally have. They'll add more as they go. Maybe they go and draft another wide receiver. Maybe they go draft another tight end. And defensively, they will start to acquire young talents. Because in the end, look at some of these defenses and young players who are developing under the defensive system. Lots of them are big-time hits, and some, well, they didn't really make the cut. But it's because they also have a mixture of veterans that can help their growth and their development. So hopefully, and I do think Matt Eberflus is a good coach. I think it works. Lou Getsy, really good offensive coordinator. He's creative. He's crafty. And so that may end up helping Justin Fields. But you got to hope that the offensive line is healthy. You got to hope that they spend money on offensive weapons. And you better hope that they've got enough room left to now start working up on defense. But finally, after all these years, since they've been stuck on a 1950s television, that they want to now help Justin Fields and shift to offense. But it's as I've said, the state of the NFC North, it's as I would have predicted. Green Bay was going to struggle. And for a lot of people, because Aaron Rodgers teeter-tottering of whether or not he's going to play, he's going to retire, all this nonchalant, would have told me Green Bay's not focused. Green Bay isn't focused. And they face against tough, physical teams. Minnesota, they face Tennessee, they face several other teams that are willing to come into either Lambeau or they're on their home field turf, and they'll sock them in the mouth, leave them just, bruised, broken, and then they're on to the next opponent. And Green Bay has no answer. And so And it is interesting because I'm curious to see what they do with Jordan Love, because I thought he had an impressive game. I thought he looked like a quarterback that if you keep him out on the field, see what he's got. Green Bay's not making the playoffs. If you see what he has, maybe you'll get some draft capital. Maybe you'll have a chance of getting more players accumulated, especially in the state that they are in currently. But that's where, if you're Green Bay, you've got to fix this, because Aaron Rodgers, he's getting paid all this money, and you have no owner, and they're criticizing a lot of the general manager. And like, Green Bay is just going to do what Green Bay does best. So that's why I look at Minnesota, Kevin O'Connell, offensive coach. When the stories came out that Kirk Cousins and Mike Zimmer were both butting heads and they weren't on the same page, this was going to be better for them, because offensively they'll produce. They will open up the field, open up the playbook, and they're going to distribute it to a lot of their big-time players. And now, this is a really impressive offense. You can't ask for more than that. And they're willing to work with it. Even if they went and drafted a quarterback. Whoever the next quarterback comes into the helm, if Kirk Cousins doesn't return, this is set. And Minnesota can go right there over the top. I mean, could you imagine if Bryce Young was in this offense? Could you imagine if CJ Stroud, hard to say, but Will Levis with the arm talent and all the rest of it, when he's throwing deep downfield to Justin Jefferson? Like, there's many possibilities and there's many opportunities on the table. But as far as I see it, Minnesota, they'll be good for the next couple of years, because you know what you're going to get with Matt LaFleur. Just too soft, not willing to make the right adjustments at the right time situationally. And this is where it hits hard for Green Bay moving forward. So with that, so I'm glad that I was able to find a Minnesota Vikings podcaster who understands it, knows it a lot. He's great at what he does. By the way, he was able to get shout outs from Voke Lombardi up on the volume. So joining me now live via the Global Satellite Network, presented by StreamYard, rap from Purple Pocket Podcast. So, I mean, to be honest, I mean, that's setting up for success, right? Like, you got a stacked up offense. Whoever comes in at quarterback is just going to absolutely love it. They may fix a little the offensive line, but defensively, they got to get better up at it. So let's start from the beginning. So Kevin O'Connell comes in to Minnesota, and I said this, that if Kirk Cousins and Mike Zimmer are both butting heads, then this is probably this is the look that this was not even going to work from the very beginning. They weren't on the same page. So when Kevin O'Connell comes in, now he makes Kirk Cousins more comfortable, and the rest of the offense is now starting to produce. So when you saw that, did you already have that thought in your mind? This offense is gonna explode in 2022.
Yeah. So I appreciate you having me on the show too, man, on game day. You know, it's exciting. It's exciting to be on the show with you today. But yeah, definitely. I think so, because Kevin O'Connell just being a likable guy. I just think Kirk Cousins, his personality, him and Kevin O'Connell, their personalities kind of just go together. I mean, Kevin O'Connell has a Kirk Cousins jersey framed in his office from Washington. So there's a relationship that's deeper than football there. It's obviously going to play in the benefit of the quarterback when you got a coach that admires you or just looks at you as that guy. You know what I mean? So, and it's showing. I mean, he's not having his best year statistically, but we're winning. So I don't complain about it too much. I rather a regular Kirk Cousins with wins on the record rather than 4,000 yards, only 3 interceptions with 30 touchdowns, but yet we're losing. So, yeah, I think it worked out perfect, and I agree with you. I think any quarterback you bring in, I think Kevin O'Connell he's going to be probably known as one of those guys that can really mold a quarterback into a good player.
Yeah, and the one big thing is, and like we looked at a bunch of coaches all throughout this year. I mean, Brian Dable is clearly a home run for the Giants.
Mhm.
It's questionable what they do in the quarterback position, whether they do stick with Daniel Jones or they move on. But here's the other thing too is um because next season's head coaching jobs, I mean, I said it several times. I think Shane Steichen's will like he's very deserving of it. I mean, the
Mhm.
offense he's put together from the Chargers and Eagles, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's great.
Yeah.
And then we're waiting on what will happen with Eric Bieniemy. Would it be that time for him to finally get a head coaching job? So I'm seeing the rest of the league shifting offensively. They're opening up the playbooks. Offenses now are starting to really put up a lot of these teams, they'll put up 25 plus points if they've got the right coach, they've got the
Mhm.
right system. So
Mhm.
seeing that, and I mean, I'm looking at Green Bay, and I'll be honest, Matt LaFleur, as much as everyone likes to think, oh, he's a genius, he's great, only when you're playing Chicago and Detroit twice a year. Like, I don't see that being impressive. Minnesota
Yeah.
came in and socked him in the mouth in week 1 and was reminding him, "We're running this division." Um, like, I look at Green Bay and I'm just like, this is not gonna look good for them. They're gonna go through all their spurts. They're clearly missing Devontae Adams. So, seeing that and witnessing how Aaron Rodgers' season has gone. Now, he has been injured. Um, could we possibly see if Aaron Rodgers still does stay in this division or if he goes elsewhere? I mean,
Mhm.
this is kind of the Minnesota Vikings grab of the division for the taking for the next 5 years. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think the tide definitely has shifted, starting this year. I mean, Kevin O'Connell being a rookie head coach too, and we're already like just taking control of the division. I mean, we have full control. I mean, like it's already like locked up. Today's game's important because I say like this is a game where we can go ahead and get our t-shirts and our hats today. So why wait? Like there's no need for us to wait for next week and then Detroit has to lose a game. Like, let's just go out there and let's just our destiny. We control it, so let's just go out there and control it today. But Green Bay's not even a factor this year. It's a little surprising, to be honest with you, when you think about Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but they have been like 13-3 the past couple seasons. Like they've been showing they can win. So it's surprising, but I mean, I think the tide has changed though, for sure. It's Purple Nation now. We're gonna run the North, and the Lions are on the come up too, man. I agree with you on that. I think they're probably gonna be more fighting for the 1 and 2 spot for the next couple of years, hopefully, because people think I hate the Lions only because we're playing them this week. So I've been like kind of trashing them. I mean, that's just the type of guy I am. I'm just purple over everything. So when we play a team, I'm coming at them. Win, lose, or draw, I'm gonna pop out afterwards, anyways. But realistically though, besides my character RAP doing a Vikings podcast, like I think the Lions are on the come up, man. And at the beginning of the season, I had them as being number 2 in the division. So I mean, it's working out. But today, I'm not on their side, man. Today they have to lay down. You know what I mean? For sure.
Yeah, and speaking of this game, because I mean, so to be honest, like I've said it, I do prime predictions every weekend,
Yeah.
and just to getting geared up for Sunday's game. So
Mhm.
I did take Detroit, but
You're
the
right.
reason of it is because Jared Goff is such a home quarterback. He's comfortable when he's there at Ford Field.
Yeah.
It's weird to think it, but I mean, Amon St. Brown,
Hmm.
I could say Josh Reynolds is kind of a sneaky receiver,
Hmm.
and then you're looking at the production levels on both running backs, DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. That's going to be kind of tough to contain.
Yeah.
Now, I do have to say, as much as I do like Minnesota, and I've seen them play offensively and defensively,
Hmm.
defense, I'm a little questionable about. It kind of seems like they've let off the gas here in the last few weeks.
Hmm.
And hopefully they can make the adjustment because going into Detroit in a division rival game, not always as easy as people put it on paper.
Right.
With so what you're seeing defensively, is there a type of adjustment and what adjustment does need to be made defensively? Because I'm like, I love the pass rush. I thought
Hmm.
Darius Smith was such a home run pick.
Hmm.
And then you're still having Harrison Smith and you had Patrick Peterson there.
Right.
And I felt, okay, they'll hold their ground.
Hmm.
But then I start to look at, well, they do kind of give up some plays and situational plays. So what is it that, the defense has to do better, and especially in a division rival game like Detroit?
First of all, we need to stop the run for sure, which is good. We got Dalvin Tomlinson back, which added a big spark on our defensive line. So we definitely need to stop the run, and we need to add pressure to Goff, like you said, because they run a lot of play action too with Goff, because he's just really good off play action too. You know what I mean? He's just been, at least this year, he's been. So we just need to make sure we're in his face, because we don't blitz a lot. Like, we're a team that just doesn't blitz. We don't really run any blitz schemes or anything. We're just pretty much 4 guys, 4 down, and we're going, we're trying to get to him. If we get to him, we get to him. Zadarius Smith's been playing with an injury the past couple of weeks, though, with a knee injury. So that's probably why his production looks like it slowed down a little bit. Hopefully he's good. I know Harrison Smith is a game time decision. I think they're actually leaning to where he's not going to start today. So we'll see Josh Metellus out there from Michigan, which I really like. Obviously you can't replace Harrison Smith, but I think he's good enough. Like, he got an interception on the first game we played Detroit because he had to play, which is ironic that he had to actually start the first time we played Detroit this year. So he's starting again this week. And, we definitely need to apply pressure on Goff. Because I think if you apply pressure on Goff, then he'll come back down to earth a little bit. But he's been playing good, man. Like you said, they score a lot of points. We don't really allow a lot of points. I know our defense looks pretty trash because, like, there's a lot of big plays we allow. Like, we play the soft coverage. We bend, don't break, and we're the exact definition of bend, don't break, because we don't allow a lot of points. We just allow a lot of big yards and big plays. But, as long as we play our game, though, we should be able to beat the Detroit Lions. But I agree with you. I don't blame you for thinking that Detroit's going to win at home. A lot of people, even Vegas, has us as underdogs. So, it is what it is, We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Rab from Purple Pocket Podcast, joining me here on the show. And it is interesting because, like, for me, I live in Vegas my entire life, and I'm a Ben guy. So whenever I'm looking at that money line, I'm like, it's got to give me some type of narrative as to why I'm leaning this way. Because listen, this season has been weird betting wise, because it's like there's not a guaranteeable game, especially if it becomes the underdog or the favorite. But if I'm getting enough points, like 2.5, I'm like, okay, that kind of gives me a little of a level playing field. So it's been so weird. And I've been trying to kind of acclimate a little more of, well, do I go for the cover, or do I really trust that they're going to put up more than 2.5? And it's going to guarantee me at least a lot of money. But so let's shift to Chicago. So I know that, like, in the similar division, the Bears are in a big spot to where now they are accumulating all this draft capital. They're accumulating all this money going into next year's free agency, and they're going to spend. I'll be surprised if they don't. But Justin Fields clearly is their franchise quarterback. And watching him now with his number 1, Darnell Mooney, and now having Chase Claypool there, I think that's kind of given a preview of, we may see Justin Fields in the come up in the next 2 years. That's why I'm like, I didn't want to give a harsh criticism for him because of organization he's a part of. Just a mess and the turmoil that Chicago has been in the last few years. But seeing this, do we kind of see that maybe this division, because Green Bay is going to go through a lot of their hurts, and Detroit's going to be up on the come up too. What is it that we may see with Chicago from Minnesota's standpoint of how do they handle Justin Fields? And if in fact that they do upgrade their offense, does that kind of give that signal that Minnesota, they want to run this division, they want to shut these offenses down? Is it like, we know what the talent they got, we've got to shut them down on all parts of the field? So what kind of, what's your thought process moving into next year? If Chicago really stacks up their offense, is that kind of giving the signal from Minnesota that we need to go out, we need to get somebody that's going to guarantee us division wins and getting us into the playoffs as well?
Not really. I look at Justin Fields as a decent quarterback, but I think they're gonna run him to the ground though. Honestly, I think they just utilize him too much with running and passing, because he can throw the ball somewhat for me, and I think he'll get better and better and better. He just seems like a type of player that wants to get better and better. But I just think they're gonna run him into the ground, man. I see a RG3 type of outcome for Fields, and I don't wish injury on anybody. I hope he has a long career and he can play us every season until he decides to retire. But for some reason, I just have a feeling that the way they utilize him with all that running and stuff like that and taking them hits, man, he's gonna fall short eventually, man. You know, but I was worried about him in the draft. I was like, dang, well, I hope Justin Fields don't turn into this Patrick Mahomes, or because you know Aaron Rodgers we figured was going to be on the way out of Green Bay. It was surprising that he signed back with him. We thought I really thought he was going to Denver, to be honest with you. But you know, once I seen him, once that was the narrative for a little while, and then the Bears draft Justin Fields, and I'm like, yo, we get Aaron Rodgers out the building. Now we got to deal with Justin Fields for the next 10 years. But I don't think he's going to be that big of an issue for us, though, honestly. I just don't. I mean, I'm not a firm believer yet in Justin Fields. I think he's decent. He can run, you know, but I think he still has to worry about making reads and stuff like that. He's really big on, like, still doing college reads, in my opinion. Like, he first read, if it ain't there, he tries to take off or starts to panic. Not all the time, but it's still happening a little too often to be a NFL quarterback. So we'll see what happens, though, man. I'm not too worried about him.
Yeah, it takes a lot of adjustment, especially coming into, you know, the NFL. Like it's very tough playing in the quarterback position because of the offense you run. And then not to mention too, you're building relationships with your teammates and guys that you're throwing the ball to at least every single day when you're out there in practice. You're out there on the weekly schedule. So it is tough. But I just look at it, I'm like, because Chicago has all this money now and they have a lot of different draft capital. If they don't use that right, yeah, they're gonna not only is it just the Vikings that are just gonna be pummeling him, but even Chicago themselves would be running him down because they don't know what a franchise quarterback looks like.
Right.
I mean, they haven't had one since Jim McMahon. That's why I'm like, I mean, come on. Like, you know, it's
yeah, they struggle on the quarterback position, man. They definitely struggle. You know, I think Justin Fields gives them a little bit of hope, though. You know, a little bit of hope. I don't know, man. There's something about Ohio State quarterbacks, though, man. I know eventually one of them has to pop. I mean, come on. These guys are like throwing 50 touchdowns a season in college and all this stuff and going crazy. And then they get to the NFL and it's like, where you at, man? Like, where's all that type of play at? But,
well, see, this is why that I'm like, and I said this before, that if in case whatever happens with Jared Goff in Detroit moving forward, I'm just saying, man, Amon-Ra St. Brown and a couple of other young, really good players on that offense, I'm almost seeing this as an offense set for CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I'm just like, and the head coaching position is questionable to me. I do like their offensive coordinator, however. He's been getting a lot of really good reviews because of the amount of points they've been scoring. Right. But I don't know if Dan Campbell's really the guy. I just think he's very emotional, but he is somebody that I'm just like, you hold on to a lead for this long and then you're coughing it out. Like, I get a little bit scared about that. But if I bring in somebody like CJ Stroud, however, who not as great in the first half in some games, but second half, he's giving me everything he's got. He's keeping me in the game. So I'm like, I can almost see that. I mean, could we possibly see in this year's draft that if Detroit takes a quarterback, could we maybe possibly see something different if CJ Stroud's in the building?
Yeah, I think so. It'd be all right. I think he's going to be just like Justin Fields. You know what the problem is? I think with Ohio State breeds really good wide receivers. And a lot of those Ohio State quarterbacks, they don't have to make reads because their number one is going to be open 9 out of 10 times because the skill level is just that much higher than their opposing team for most of the time. You know what I mean? So they don't really have to go through progressions because they know, okay, Marvin Harrison Jr. is on the left side. That's my read. I'm throwing it regardless. I'm throwing it. You know what I mean? He's going to be open regardless. And I think once they get in the NFL, they realize like, oh, shoot, he's not open. Oh, Amon Smith or St. Brown's not open this play. I got to look to my other progressions. And then they get into a panic mode. You know what I mean? And it's something that they can learn over time and get better at. I just don't know, man. I mean, RIP to Dwayne Haskins. You know, you got Justin Fields, which is still early, so we can't really judge him too much. Like I said, he's been showing some promise with his legs and stuff. And then CJ Stroud, it's just like eventually something is deeper than just these guys being so good in college, and when they get into the NFL, it just doesn't pan out as we expected. And I think it's because of the talent level of the receivers they breed. Because look at the receivers that came out of Ohio State this season, man. You got Garrett Wilson, Olave. Like,
Salave. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
You just throw them right in, and they're just automatically making an impact because they breed good receivers at Ohio State. I don't know what it is.
I'm gonna tell you what though. I mean, if Njigba, the other receiver that's right there, if he goes to a speedy offensive type,
Yeah.
watch out.
Yeah.
That kid's gonna really produce if he's in the right platform. Because man, I see him sometimes next to Marvin Harrison Jr. and I'm just like, how is it that we're not talking a whole lot about this guy?
Yeah.
This guy can get open, and when he does, he's probably a threatening force at yards after the catch. That's why I'm like, yeah, he deserves to be in a speedy type offense. So yeah, you're absolutely right about that. With some of those Ohio State receivers, I mean, good God.
Me and you can play quarterback in Ohio State with that, man. One read and throw it. Like one read, throw it. You know what I'm saying? Like those guys they're amazing, man. They really have a good wide receiver head. A coach must be something.
God. And it's funny. We haven't seen a deeper wide receiver class in the last 2 seasons now since Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and several of these guys have come in this league. It's a guarantee yet not a guarantee, but if you fit them right in the right system, they are going to give you those tangibles.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, they're getting paid that much and quarterbacks are producing up to them. So, finally in a couple minutes, so I made my case with Caleb Williams. I think he's an unbelievable talent. And I thought it was great. The fact that USC has another Heisman winner since Reggie Bush. And I thought it was well-deserved because first of all, Lincoln Riley, people thought, he's leaving Oklahoma. He's not going to be that good. Well, Sooner fans, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, Will Venables is not that great either.
Right.
But the second Lincoln Riley came into USC, he was going to change up a lot of this offense. He was going to make them produce. I did not think he was going to make them produce this fast. I mean, this is incredible. But when I look at the Heisman first of all, Max Duggan, I think, is a real good quarterback with TCU. But I did have to hold my breath because I've seen TCU quarterbacks. I've seen Andy Dalton. And I'm like, he could play well in college, but will that transfer into the NFL level? And then there's, CJ Stroud, as I mentioned. And then there's also, oh God. Then you also have one other quarterback, Stetson Bennett. And I'm like, well, Stetson Bennett he just reminds me of AJ McCarron and Greg McElroy. He's just making the offense better for Kirby Smart. That's it. Like, I don't see the tangibles moving into the NFL. And then I could say honorable mention, Hendon Hooker is like, he's having a great year in Tennessee. And then it's unfortunate with the injury. But Caleb Williams, I can make an argument. Next year, like, and I'll be honest, could you possibly see Caleb Williams on this offense? Like, teams are seeing his talent. And they're like, look, I don't care if we even have to blow games out or whatnot. But I'm like, I'm looking at our future. And it's like we didn't expect this with Patrick Mahomes. And then the second he's there with Andy Reid and in Kansas City, they took a risk. Mahomes is one of the best in the game.
Right.
So could we possibly see some type of ripple effect next year in that case when Caleb Williams is eligible for the draft?
Yeah. I think, and this is the thing too. Speaking of the Vikings with quarterbacks and Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, I think they're definitely going to locate their guy, though. I know they were brought into this organization to say, hey, you know what? Kirk was the right decision to go ahead and extend him so we can kind of, they wanted to do kind of like not a rebuild. They called it a competitive rebuild. You know what I mean? Where it's like, hey, let's not just blow it up over here like the Bears did. Let's try to still compete next year for the NFC North because we know Aaron Rodgers might be leaving. So this is we have a window here, and it's showing that it's working. So congratulations to them, man. Good job with the front office and just the owners and everything. But I think Kevin O'Connell and Chris, they also have an understanding like, Kirk's not getting any younger. His stats are dropping this year. That could be from just different offensive scheme, and we're winning still. So you don't want to look too deep into it. But
games.
Yeah, primetime games still. So, and I'm sure Kevin O'Connell, as a head coach and a general manager, I mean, that's like the biggest trophy you can really get other than a Super Bowl trophy is to locate your quarterback. You know what I mean? And have and draft a franchise guy that takes this franchise and they'll have jobs for the next 10 years. You know what I mean? So I think it's something that's going to happen. And Williams, man, I think he's going to go higher than what we'll be able to get him. But because he, like you said, he was a beast, man. He was a beast when he came in for Oklahoma, right? Yeah, when he played for Oklahoma. So I mean, he's a beast, man. I like his competitiveness. I actually like the guy from Florida, though, the Florida Gators, Anthony. What's his name? Anthony. Yeah, Anthony Richardson. I like him.
Yeah.
I like him, and I think he'll fall down the draft, and he'll be somebody that you can probably, grab up and look at as a project. But I mean, we can get into the quarterback thing, man. I got other deeper things with quarterbacks that are in the league right now that still haven't proved themselves. That I say, why not take a chance on them? So we'll see, man. I'll get into that in the off season, though, for sure.
I mean, hey, could you imagine Green Bay scenario in their situation is so questionable, but I'm just looking at it. I'm like, look, if Jordan Love can play,
right?
Okay, teams are going to call.
Mm-hmm.
Teams are going to literally call and inquire. I mean, I've said this. I'm like, well, Indianapolis needs a quarterback. I mean, they've been going through several other quarterbacks, and then they'll give up, picks, and then Green Bay can finally, change up with what they got, especially with the money line that they have right now.
Mm-hmm.
But oh yeah, I mean, yeah, you could go on for quarterbacks at least like for days and
Yeah.
try to figure all that out. But it is incredible though. I mean,
it is.
The fact that they blew it up the first year was just I did not see that coming.
Right.
I knew they were going to be real good, but I've said it before. Utah is tough.
Mhm.
UCLA, they might give you a handful, and
Mhm.
then but I wouldn't have seen him kind of going over the top like with Georgia or with I mean, you could with TCU, but then you're also looking at Ohio, like several other teams, and it's like, oh man. But I think next year's going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah.
But all righty, well, thank you so much, Rap. It's always a
Yeah,
pleasure.
man.
And
Appreciate
for
you having
all-
me on, man.
Absolutely. So for all of our listeners and viewers, where can they find you of everything when you're sending out that skull chant? Where
Yeah.
can they find you for everything Vikings?
Yeah, man. Purple Pocket Podcast on everything. I mean, it's pretty simple. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube and Facebook. So yeah, just Purple Pocket Podcast, man. I'm the only one. So once you type it in, you'll see my logo pop up, and the logo is right there. Y'all see it right there behind me on that picture, man. You see those two P's, man. Double P, man. You just rock with me, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you, Jake, for having me on. You know what I mean? Great show, man. You know what? You got a good thing going on, man. You know your stuff. You feel me? So you definitely gonna blow up, man. I'm gonna support you from this day on for sure.
Oh man, much appreciated, brother. Thank you so
I gotta
much.
get with you on some of them bets, man. You live in Vegas, man. I need the inside job going on, man.
I'm telling you, man. I mean, Prime Predictions is where it's at.
Let's
I mean,
go.
that's why I'm like, yep, I'm a betting man, and I'll make sure that I got guarantees ones where there for you.
Let's go.
Thank you so much, man. Have a
no
good
problem,
one,
man.
and good luck to the Vikings today, man.
Go Vikings, baby. Let's go.
Oh yeah, never a dull moment when it comes to Rap. I mean, great guy, and it's funny because he, like I said, he was up on Vocal Lombardi's show. He ended up getting the shout out and all the rest of it. So great come up for him. Really do appreciate him, and yeah, it's going to be interesting with the Minnesota Vikings. But as I've said before, they're going to run the NFC North. Green Bay's just a mess. Detroit is obviously in the come-ups and in the works. I don't know if they have the right coach. And then you got Chicago, who you're just hoping they spend money next year. That's really all the guarantee. All right, so one other good friend of mine, been a really, really good friend, especially part of the former network as well, where we were a part of. He's great on Philadelphia Sports Talk, everything Philly, but he's also really good when it comes to outside sources all around the league. Robert Lyle from the Philadelphia Sports Talk, joining me via the Global Satellite Network presented by StreamYard. All right, so first of all, like the Eagles, I don't see a weakness with them. And I mean, they made Tennessee fire their general manager. Like I wasn't sure about that move itself, but they made him fire. They got him fired. And after seeing AJ Brown put up the numbers he did, I mean, I don't see a weakness with this team. I think offensively and defensively, they are just so complete. I don't have an answer. And they're getting Jordan Davis back after they got a really good defensive line. I know the question is, Can Nick Sirianni win a playoff game after what we saw from last year? But I mean, walking into the playoffs potentially. I mean, they're just sitting up into the driver's seat, right? Oh, you're muted. Oh, hold on. There we go.
But yeah, so we did get Jordan Davis back. I don't know exactly what the status is, but he only played like a few snaps just for precautionary reasons because he's coming off that high ankle sprain. Like you said, I mean, before when he went down, you could definitely tell there was a one glaring weakness, and that was the run defense. And that's where we picked up Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph to kind of help that. Now, knowing the fact that even we have Jordan Davis back, we also have, Josh Sweat and Hassan Reg on the outside, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Jordan Davis, and Linval Joseph. We have all these pieces to really try to get that number one seed, and let's be real, try to clinch the first round bye, because the last time that we ever have done that, we won the Super Bowl because of that. Now, like you said, this not just this on Sirianni, but this is on Jalen Hurts too. And I've been one of the, I won't say supporter, but I've been one of the very, very critics. Like, can he be that guy to win a playoff game? By the eye test, I think he can do it. I think he's really shown to put in that work ethic, for a guy who spent like 3 seasons at Alabama and then, finished up at Oklahoma. And then that definitely Lincoln Riley has done, like you said, with Lincoln Riley has done wonders, especially for Hurts during this time at Oklahoma. And we're definitely seeing it. Now it's going to be very interesting of where we're going to go since we do own the Saints first round pick. Best guess for me is either try to get another, maybe another defensive line edge rusher, maybe like a Jalen Carter or Will Anderson Jr. So the only time will tell.
Yeah, it will be interesting, but like I said, I could not believe that Howie Roseman even pulled that off in the first place with even just getting that trade. And now, like at that point, if New Orleans is losing more games, that's just guaranteeing Philadelphia's moving closer up into the top, the top spots. But it's crazy though. And so talking about, Jalen Hurts, I'm watching him week after week after week. He's just getting better every time I watch him. And situationally, if the run game isn't doing good, he's got no problem. He's able to just throw the football, and he's got all the right pieces in front of him. And he's willing to take matters into his own hands. Are you impressed so much about how Jalen Hurts has been able to step in? And even though that this offense itself, like the offensive coordinator putting up all the play calls, this has been absolutely stunning. But have you been impressed? Because this is definitely MVP caliber stuff.
I have, because this is a contract year for him. This is a contract year for most of these players on this roster. And, and I said this many times too, if Hurts doesn't ball out, then he's out the building. I literally put that on record because, like we haven't done bad with quarterbacks, but just we haven't really found the solid since the days of McNabb. At what point we've been through so many scrubs like like a Sam Bradford, a Kevin Cobb, to name a couple. But the fact that Jalen Hurts cleaned up his throwing mechanics since from last year, actually let Shane Steichen actually call the play calls, which also has really been beneficial for Hurts and actually utilize him to what he does best. And we saw that against a team like Tennessee, who has a good run defense. We almost put 400 yards on top of their heads. Now we have the Giants coming up. So either way, we can go either way against the Giants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I look at the Giants. They have the right head coach. I just don't think, Daniel Jones is literally like the answer for the Giants' problems. I mean, at the end of it, they've really got to revamp the offense, but they have the right guy that can do that. I mean, after, grooming up Josh Allen, like Brian Dable's willing to take that on. It's just interesting to see it. But what's funny about that is, and this is where I will say this, there is going to be 6 or 7 head coaching jobs open. It usually is almost every year because owners aren't afraid, to fire and then look for the next thing. And they're doing it so quick, even after year one. So I've said this over again. I think Shane Steichen is more than deserving of an NFL job because I'm watching Kevin O'Connell he's successful in Minnesota. I'm watching Brian Dable. He had Josh Allen, and he's just produced him really good. Shane Steichen, because of the way he's built quarterbacks, like he's a quarterback whisperer. With Justin Herbert and now with Jalen Hurts, I could see him definitely getting a head coaching job, and I think he'll be very successful at it. Is there something you've seen from Shane Steichen through his playing calling that really is like something like, dude, this is innovative stuff? Like, this is something you can teach at a head coaching level. What were your thoughts?
To be honest, there's really nothing much to say, but the only negative part is, which has been knocked about, that he has a tendency at sometimes to abandon the run game a little bit, but he really hasn't he's pretty much just like, just done like the old school, play calling, depending on the situations. So, I mean, there's really nothing like, innovative, like these, like, never implemented like wildcat formations and stuff like that, but just, let these guys play, just use them to their strengths. That's just kind of how Shane Steichen has really done the last 2 years here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like, and looking at coaching scenarios, because I could tell from a couple of them that really do need an offensive personnel, because sometimes these defensive coaches, they're pulling up on the reins and they're not allowing a lot of these offensive guys to really produce the same way. And so that's why I'm like, and in a league that is really moving towards offense majority of the time, I mean, they'll figure it out with defense because they've got the right coordinators that they could really make a shutdown defense. But if you're not getting the offense right, that's where it's now making you lose a lot of these close games. So shifting over, so interesting stuff. So the Philadelphia Phillies signed Trey Turner to an 11-year contract. I said, that's a lot of money for a shortstop. I have not seen this. Like, I've not seen this now in like since I've even seen Troy Tulowitzki take a massive contract. Like, that was the first one who would ever took a 10-year contract with his, like, it was 197, almost close to 200 million. And now I see Tatis ended up getting a massive extension. I see Trey Turner getting a huge contract. I see Xander Bogaerts getting a huge contract. And I'm like, well, wait, like, shortstops, as I remember, were guys that were speedsters. They're really good defensively, and they were guys that were getting you on base. And so seeing Trey Turner and what we saw from the Phillies last year, which, by the way, that was impressive, for them to literally be like, they had no.
And I'll bet to this too, Jake. I had us losing to 5 games on record to the Atlanta Braves, but now it's like, nope, they just had to flip the script and they beat them. It's like, what the hell are we watching? My buddy Tyler, he didn't even had us make it out of the wild card. We swept the wild card, and we just, like, I couldn't be much power for the squad because, let's be real, Joe Girardi was that was kind of just horrible. But I mean, if you looked at this contract, yes, it looked like it's a lot on paper, but we're giving him $27 million a season. And and Turner himself said, there's a lot of factors that, his wife is from Jersey. He's a lot of East Coast ties, especially, I mean, still good friends with Harper. And just loves playing on the East Coast, and he's like where he's more comfortable.
Yeah. No, yeah. And that's why I'm like, and also too, I mean, I look at the Phillies lineup and seriously, they needed a leadoff hitter. And I think Trey Turner really does fit that bill, because every time I see Kyle Schwarber on the leadoff position, I'm like, why is he there? What is he doing?
Well, you and Key are pretty much the same.
Oh God. It's like every time I see, I'm like, he does not have the swing built to be a leadoff. Like, I'm sorry. I like, he is more of that cleanup or 5-hole hitter, in my opinion, because of just the way just the ball explodes off his bat. And the fact that he could give you those RBIs too, depending on the scenario and situation, he can give you that swing. If I'm like, bases loaded, I'll let Schwarber hit it, because in the end, he's going to let that ball rip. But looking at that, and what's interesting is, so now it's allowing Bryson Stott to go and play second base. I'm a little bit curious, but when I said this, I was like, well, they're spending a lot of money on a shortstop. Of course, my first reaction is, what do they do about pitching? Because sometimes that doesn't always pan out.
We just never been known to do that. But after making the World Series last year, like knowing that a lot of Phillies fans, well, Philadelphia sports fans in general, just kind of goddamn impatient. I even said this too. Like, the first 2 years of Dombrowski's tenure here in Philadelphia, it's more like it was an evaluation period. So, where do we need to improve some stuff? I mean, we saw the rotation was decent, but not great. And that's where Taiwan Walker came in on the 4-year, $72 million deal, which is about $18 million a year. Now, at the time, yeah, it looks like that was pretty well face value. It's like, damn, that's a lot for a number 4 guy in the rotation. But either way, we still got him. We also brought in Matt Strom on the 2 years to help with the bullpen. And who knows what Dombrowski? I think he's got another plan up his sleeve that none of us Phillies fans know about. So, and it's just another guy that we've been kind of teasing a little bit was Chris Bassett. I don't know if everybody's picked up on Chris Bassett kind of being in Philadelphia. So me, Key, and many other Phillies fans, kind of realize, could Chris Bassett be another guy that the Phillies could use in that rotation? And I think he could be that number 5 guy, and you could have Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, Walker, and or Bassett, or maybe Andrew Painter. There's been a lot of speculation that Andrew Painter, for a kid that's 20 years old and just ripping through the minor leagues, it's just, even though our farce isn't great, but we have 3 good pitching prospects, and Griff McGarry, Mick Abel, who, from what I've been hearing, has been pretty solid so far during his time in the minor leagues. But Andrew Painter's been highly touted in the Phillies organization.
Oh yeah, and I mean that, like, this organization itself. I mean, it never felt the same, like how like how it felt like when, like, in the 2008 season. I was like, okay, I know what Phillies team I'm getting. They're very explosive offensively. They play real good situational defense, and their pitching will get them out of certain scenarios. This year it was just so odd because it was like and we've known this for years for the Phillies. They'll have tendencies where they'll get hot and then they just get cold again. And then it's like it's this riding wave. And then the second they're in, there's a whole belief system at the end of it, and it got them this far to the World Series, which I was shocked. I did not expect that to happen. But now, after being in a World Series, I mean, this now has shifted the focus to where now we really have to take our team and our lineup and everybody all in together on this roster really seriously, right?
But yeah, I mean, it's just, after making a World Series, I was just thinking to myself, like, where can we go from here? Like, where can we improve? Hey, that's what we have done, And I love Stopworth to death. I mean, I love having 2 Vegas kids, and Harper's done a very good job with some of these guys, some of these younger guys. Even though it does suck to let Chiesa grow up, but I think we knew realistically he was not going to be here from forever because he was getting up there in age, about 32, 33. I think that's where Trey Turner comes into play. And there were times you've seen been very comfortable at second base when Segura went down. It's really shown that, have a guy like Turner at short, who at times, I know people are going to knock on him in the postseason. He has made a couple of mistakes, but what player doesn't? Like, everyone, we're all human. That's just kind of but I think what you're getting out of Turner, like, you're getting like a 5-tool player, which, quite frankly, we haven't really had that in quite some time. And then Harper is going to come back to midseason, and the fact that when he gets fully healthy and have him back on the outfield, because thank God, because I can want Castellanos out in the outfield. That's just besides me. But I mean, I think overall though, I'm really hoping Castellanos can bounce back, because I think he's. Me and Tyler kind of talked about this too. We just talked about, like, he's trying to do too much, trying to impress us. Like,
yeah,
dude, like, I kind of get why. I mean, at times, yeah. I mean, Philadelphia is a stressful fucking place. It's a rough place to play. Because a lot of people you don't understand. We have expectations. We set you to a certain standard. If you don't live up to that standard, we're going to let you hear about it. Over the years, like, you have, and that's just how it is over here.
I mean, you have to think that's the reason why that the Eagles are playing the way that they are. They know that the expectations are so high in Philadelphia that if you ain't producing, you're going to be on the biggest headliner in tomorrow's news. And same with the Phillies. Probably same thing for the Sixers too. I would imagine. I'm like, and then and honestly, you're looking at the Flyers. And
Don't get me started on the Flyers.
Oh God, Chuck Fletcher just needs
Get
to
out of here.
Yeah, he's got to get.
I told Flyers fans this too. This is making Ed Snyder rolled in his grave, because when Ed Snyder was still around, God rest his soul, he has overseen some really good teams over the years. But just when Chuck Fletcher came in, it just all went to hell. Tony DeAngelo is surprisingly playing pretty solid hockey. Nick Delorier is pretty solid. But just ever since Travis Konecny got banged up, JVR will have to move on because the dude, he ain't getting any younger. But it's just, we have a lot of problems. And John Tortorella, I think it all starts, getting the right coaching. I think Torch was for me.
I was just about to say that, because when the season started, I said this. I said, "Oh, John Tortorella breathes Philadelphia to me," because he's a guy with no filter. He's a guy that honestly is very realistic when it comes to what his team is doing, production-wise, and how he's setting the tone. And I'm like, oh, this is a good fit for Philadelphia. I'm like, this guy could really make the changes, but you got to give him the right personnels all around him to where he's able to really take this team over the top.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had games like it's surprising. Like, people say, "Oh, you're like," even though we're bad, but the fact that we have a tendency to struggle against the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are absolutely horrible.
Yeah,
we don't do well against them. We just, man, GG's to you, Jake. I mean, we just barely got by your Vegas Golden Knights. But it's just, without Travis, without connecting JVR, Ellis, at this point, I would rather move on from him, because the dude, he just can't stay healthy. Yeah. And, it's not the same Flyers team I used to see it in the days with, Danny Briere, prime Claude Giroux, Wayne Simmons. A lot of people would tend to forget about it, and we still a fan favorite here in Philadelphia. It's just a mess. The Flyers, and for historical context, we have not won a Stanley Cup since 1975. So that should tell you just how bad the Flyers say how bad, but just how very inconsistent the Flyers have been since then.
No, yeah. And I mean, it's been an upside down narrative for them. And that's why I'm like, to see them kind of going down that kind of route. I mean, I've said it, they needed to get better offensive players. They needed to get more depth, and they needed to, at the very least. And like I said, I think John Tortorella really does handle he really does handle the helm very well. I mean, we've seen him in the previous teams he's really coached. So I think that there is positivity for, the Flyers moving forward, but they got to do it. Robert Lyle on the Philadelphia Sports Podcast, Sports Talk. I look at the Sixers right now, and it's been kind of a tough
up and down, for lack of a better term.
Down start, but I've said this. I was like, they were able to get Ben Simmons out of the helm. They needed to get him out of Philadelphia, and now it's, you got to open the possibilities for more shooters at this point, because I'm looking at Tobias Harris right now. I don't think this is really,
it's not really working out. And like you said, who's going to be dumb enough to take on that contract? Let's keep it a buck here. Like, unfortunately, until that contract runs out, which unfortunately we're kind of stuck with him. So I'm going to blame Elton Brand. I'm going to blame Elton Brand for that, and blame also, Brand for giving Simmons that massive extension. Because remember, and that extension that Brand gave to Simmons kind of ruined everything for rookies because of that. And, we know how Stephen A. Smith, whether like him or hate him, but he has said, there's going to be the Ben Simmons role one way or the other. Look what's happened because of that. I don't look like I have what the role is going on, but it's really changes how, like, you can't even trade a rookie like throughout the contract, whatever the case may be. But, like I said, I mean, Milton's still doing still in this thing. DeAnthony Milton's really has come as advertised. I think he had a really probably one of his better games that we've seen. It all says, can we just get Doc Rivers out of the goddamn building? Because holy crap. Like, it's been 3 years, and I'm going to really want to rip my hair out, because the dude just cannot. Like, against an abysmal Lakers team, we blew a 19-point lead. So, like, I'm done. I'm like literally legitimately, the entire city of Philadelphia is done with Doc.
Man,
because I tell people this too. Like, give me Larry Brown back on the phone, for crying out loud. And a lot of people don't remember. Larry Brown was one of the head coaches for the Sixers in 2000, 2001 when he had DK Mutombo, Allen Iverson, Aaron McKee, Eric Snow, with just to name a few. So yeah.
Oh my God, yeah, and it's like I can't even explain the Sixers scenario at all, like, because I mean, look, Joel Embiid is the best thing you got, and you got to rally around a lot of shooters on this lineup, and the fact that Doc Rivers, I've said it, I just think Doc Rivers is just past due. I just don't think that he's able to really get himself to like where he was years ago, and I think he's just kind of past his prime. He's just really past that prime now. Um, but hopefully moving forward, I mean, the Sixers, they'll figure it out. But I mean, it's a tough start to start with, but at least it's not as terrible. It's not as, like there's some positives to it, but in the end, you can't have that moving into playoffs.
You really can't. I mean, although, like I said, the only positives, I mean, we're definitely getting Tyrese Maxey back, who's kind of, even though he had, I mean,
I like him.
I mean, he has taken a little bit of a step back, but he's still producing at what he did in year 2. And like I said, I mean, I tell people this too. If this pandemic didn't happen, history could have been a lot different for the Sixers if we did not just had Tyrese Maxey just land in our laps with the 21st overall pick. And we see what this kid's all about, and give credit to John Calipari and that Kentucky Wildcats team, and we saw it, the kind of players he's pumped out over the years. Boogie, AD for the well, AD hasn't really been himself ever since then. But I mean, just to name a few. I mean, like it's like I said, it's been very rough, and it's at times it's like when is enough? Because we have, like I said, we have not been in the days, I mean, the very worst start we ever had was 1972 when we were 1973 in 82 games. I mean, even though Brett Brown, even though he was kind of a frustrating to deal with, but we had some 4 or 5 win seasons under him, but just really could never get over it. It just, like I said, Doc, it just has not been the same since the early 2000s. And, at this point, I'm thinking to myself, either give Sam Cassell a shot, because at this point, what harm do you have? I mean, what do you have to lose at this point? Because we have not won any championship since '83, when you didn't have Bobby Jones, the late Moses Malone, just to name a few. It's been very frustrating for the Flyers and the Sixers in this city.
Yeah. And I just look at the successes right now with what the Phillies and then the Eagles are doing. I mean, they got to have that same kind of recipe for success themselves too. I mean, it's just, especially the Flyers. I mean, that's just, this hot and cold stuff. It just really does get tiring. But ultimately, Chuck Fletcher's just got to get out of the building. This is not the kind of lineup that you would want to put all together and not add more pieces on top of it to where they're guaranteeing some guys healthy returns. It really is just a struggling point.
It really is. I mean, we've been begging for Comcast to sell this damn team anyways, because I mean, they're not doing nothing with it. And you have, let's be real, just like you said, I mean, we just really haven't had the best players come through. I mean, like I said, he has some notable names coming through. Giroux, Wayne Simmons. I mean, Carter Hart's probably one of the better goaltenders that we've drafted since, let's be real, I will admit, since the late Ray Emery. A lot of people don't remember how he was actually pretty decent, pretty solid during his time. But, it's just, with the state of the Flyers hockey, it's really just, it turns me, because I remember I used to watch hockey on a daily basis. And, as over time, as the Flyers were getting really horrible, it's yeah, I'm done. Unless something changes, because I mean, that bubble year, now a lot of people are going to say, how people felt about that. But, I thought we had a best shot. I think that was only the one shot to win it all, and finally ends this damn thing. But no, and then there's another thing too. The Flyers know how to piss off people. Number one, buying out Oscar Lindblom, really set the entire city of Philadelphia off. For a guy who kicked cancer's ass and bought out his contract, that still rubs me the wrong way.
Oh yeah, that when I saw that, I was just like, wow. After an amazing story like that, I was very surprised of even how that even got handled. That's insane. But real quick before I let you go, so I've said this over several times. My guarantees in the NFC, I know the Eagles are a guarantee. I'm now questionable about San Francisco moving forward because no Jimmy Garoppolo. Now you have Brock Purdy, which he is accurate. He does play real well. Minnesota in a position, they just have to adjust the defense. But I do think that they can produce offensively because of what Kevin O'Connell's done. And then finally, I think my other I can't seem to figure out the Dallas Cowboys thing. Like they're just blowing people out. They're really playing a lot of this situational type football.
And
like,
the way that I see this, I tell people this too. If you're up by like say 2 or 3 scores at that point, I say you'll put your reserves in just for the sake of it.
Yep.
But knowing that, like say if it was Philly, like there's like this, like I said, this also ties to the fact that we still have this weird narratives. Like say we blow out people, like we still kept our starters out. Like that's a whole different situation. But when it comes to Dallas, no one bats a goddamn eye. But I mean, but then again, this is what happens with the national media who are. I put this out on record too. Like we seen, some are just complete dick riders. Well, mostly for Patrick Mahomes, but I mean, I like what Patrick Mahomes can bring to the table, which is surprising. He has, I would say, to regress, but kind of stick a little bit of a step back. But I still think he's still a good quarterback. But the fact that, like you said, and especially with all this OBJ bullshit going on, that's a whole different situation in entirety. And to be quite honest, even though I really don't hate the Cowboys, even though I enjoy the rivalry, Mike McCarthy ain't it for them. Let's be real. I just don't understand Mike McCarthy at all. I really don't. But I will say this too. Dallas has got some really good pieces. Michael Parsons. Tyler Smith has really come into his own since Tyron Smith went down. And let's be real. Yeah. Hang it up. Same with you, Jason Peters, for crying out loud. Jesus.
Yeah, Jason Peters. He's literally gotten past himself. Like I'd said the same thing, but no, it's true though. But I mean, like for the NFC, because the NFC's just really just been weakened up. And that's where I'm like looking at a lot of those teams. I can see those guarantees. It's a different expectation when you're looking at the other side of the AFC, because there's so many of these AFC teams that they just shock you. They'll shock you in several different ways. And that's why I'm like moving into the NFC, like those couple teams there that I named off could be my guarantees. But it'll be an interesting game, like an interesting scenario, the more we get into the divisional and the championship round. But I do have full confidence with the Eagles because I just don't see a weak spot in either of their games. But I think the big criticism is that if they could control the close game matchups and they could literally shift a lot of their in-game scenarios, that team's just going to be unstoppable, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And, and I admit this to people too. I was one of the many that is looking like an idiot because I've overhyped the AFC, and good Lord, that's a toffee tart. God. Oh. And for those who, if you did not watch the Thursday night game, how?
Oh yeah, that whole thing with Baker Mayfield was insane.
Like literally, dude, it's been there 2 days and you choke a 13-point lead. Oh, for the love of
no adjustment. They kept.
That's Josh McDaniels in the nutshell, and the fact that from what we're hearing that they're cash for, yeah, you should have thought about it before you giving that Gruden that massive contract. 10 years, $100 million. You still have to pay off. You don't look like how much you're paying off for Josh McDaniels, so you're pretty much screwed. I was like, good Lord. It's just the AFC. I mean, it's just the AFC West. It just was, I won't say it's a complete mess, but just what fell way below what we expected this entire part of that. We know how good this Chiefs were going to be. Mm-hmm. Chargers, well, the Chargers been, well, where do I even want it?
Well, I'll tell you this. If the Chargers lose tonight, you better hope that the Spanos family is making phone calls.
I mean, at that point they should, or just sell the damn team, because they should not be wasting away like a guy like Justin Herbert. Who else? Mike Williams. Huge Clemson guy. Just can't. But you got to keep your damn receivers healthy, for crying out loud.
So I kept saying, I was like,
you can't rely on Austin Eckler all the damn time, because you're gonna run that man into the ground.
Yeah, and I've said it. I was like, why did the Chargers not make a phone call to the Jets inquiring about Denzel Mims? He would have been
Elijah Moore.
He would have been the perfect fit especially too, Keenan Allen is getting old, and you're not going to get the same production year after year. He's going to get old. He's going to like his game is going to change. And so it's like you can't be sitting around for far too long. It's insane. But yeah, no, like the expectations, they were so high, and then it just seems like it's so
It just hit rock
disappointing.
bottom.
Yeah, it was so disappointing.
It's just like, especially with the way that the Chiefs have been playing. I mean, they're still, like I said, they're still a good team, but
Oh,
we
yeah.
have seen moments where like it makes you scratches your head, especially the 3 losses that they've have. First of all, losing to the Colts. First of all, I thought they should have blown the Colts out in my pickles, but I'm still pissed at Casey that you fucking dropped the ball on that. Kelsey, the fact that
the special teams, That's
like
all it took.
Kelsey, I think last week did not play his best game, which is think myself, what do we watch? Like, this is not unlike what's seen Travis Kelsey, and the rest of this Chiefs team. But where I think where the defense for Chiefs, it's okay, but it's not where we expected it to be, with a guy like Trent McDuffie, who's actually had a solid season. Karlatis is just, I won't say he's a bust, but he's just had poor play. But I think like I said, I still think he's going to clean that up. I think he's still one of the better edge rushers in this class. Yeah, but I mean, we just had some expectations for a lot of teams that just hit rock bottom. I mean, the Raiders in particular. My buddy Jeff at the Hardcore Sports, we've overhyped the Raiders, and we're looking at kind of biting the bullet on this one.
Oh yeah, no, that's why I was like, all the expectations, it definitely just went down the drain all from there. But thank you so much for being here with me.
Not a problem, Jake.
Where can my viewers and listeners find you as well for everything all Philly?
Well, you guys can follow me here on the YouTube page. We're on the road to 1,000. We're almost towards that halfway point. At the Philly Sports Podcast, I'm also posting some stuff on TikTok as well and on my Instagram page, and not just all Philly sports content too. Like I said, and like Jay said it best, I usually cover a lot of teams depending on the news, and if you like WNBA coverage, mostly for the Las Vegas Aces, because that is my team going forward if Philly doesn't get one. But I mean, like I said, I'll do pretty much everything. I'll pretty much just cover mostly, and like I said, it's mostly Philly sports, but I'll also will do my due diligence to get some other teams, some coverage as well. But like I said, you can follow me on Instagram at Philly Sports. Same with my TikTok, which we're still building up that page, but mostly here on the Philly Sports Talk Podcast, and just pretty much just putting the hard work in, at the same time.
Boy, so you're already on the Aces train. You're already.
Seeing what Becky Hammond has done in her first year, like it's really been very impressive. And Asia Wilson, even though when it comes to women's, South Carolina, even though it fucking pains me to say it, because I'm a huge Clemson guy when it comes to college football, because I hate South Carolina with a fucking passion. And that's another thing. I've been ranting on on my Clemson Tigers. The fact that you shit the bed against Notre Dame, which still pisses me off, and you drop the ball against Spencer Rattler in the fucking Gamecocks. Like, what are we doing? Like, it's like, and then it's bad enough. Like, and DJ Ugule, I've talked mad shit on this kid. We thought this kid should be, and for those who know what I'm talking about, he used to be the backup to Trevor Lawrence and talk about having big shoes to fill, has not produced the last 2 to 3 years, and he's already entered the transfer report. And at this point, good riddance, because Cade Klubnik's probably is going to be our new fresh face on for the. We're in the orange and white. So there's a little bit offhand.
Yeah. All righty, Robert. Well, thank you so much for joining me, man. Always pleasure to have you. Have a good one, and we'll see exactly how the Eagles pan out today. All right. Well, Robert Lyle there for you. Boy, we definitely had a stacked lineup today. But it was super good. And that's the thing is because Philly sports, yes, they are very there's high expectations. You can't whiff on any of those expectations at all. Like none. And when I start thinking about that, the Eagles and the Phillies, they're exceeding the expectations that they should. And it's just kind of crazy to think it. And the Flyers and the Sixers, hopefully the Sixers can figure this out, because that's just absurd for literally for that to really just kind of pan out, go on. I mean, it's crazy. But yeah, Philadelphia sports, they have expectations. You cannot afford to end up, throwing those down in the drain. But all right, folks. Well, that's going to do it here for me up on the show on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Good Lord. I say shout out to Rapid Purple Pocket Podcast and, of course, Robert Lyle of Philly Sports Talk as well for joining me today. Man, we had a lot going on, but always keeping it entertaining, always keeping it real and entertaining. We love it. Absolutely love it here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. So thank you guys so much for joining me here up on the show. We really appreciate it. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell button for all latest notifications to keep you up to date on future and past shows. So much going on. We've got NFL today. Can't wait to see how the rest of the game is. And by the way, shouting out to my good man, Emmanuel Acho. I'm going to have my popcorn ready today. I'm going to have my popcorn ready, staring up at my 50-inch TV. Probably going to be concaving in my my couch with the ottoman, and I'm just going to be watching a great game. Justin Herbert against Tua Tagovailoa. I like it. So, all righty, guys. Have a good one, and we will see you on the next episode of the Snake Sports Talk Show. Take care, you guys.